folks. So as you know, as you may have heard, the left and the right actually have a ton in common. And the best representation of this political unity is none other than Sauger and Jetty, a person who recently claimed that the Trump Postal Service electoral interference felt like the new Russiagate literally less than 24 hours before a bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee confirmed that Russiagate was real. So that was what good timing on that part. So I agree, Sauger. Yes, it is the new Russiagate in that it's a real thing that's happening. It's bad. It's not good. Now Sauger, because he is just a master of from a conservative perspective, challenging power and speaking truth to power, was recently put on the list of the Trump administration's approved Biden Trump moderators, you know, because that's something the Trump administration typically does. It puts on their approved list people who are super critical of authority. Now, Sauger, you know, obviously this is a great honor for him. Here we go. A segment from Rising. Sauger and Jetty. How I would moderate Trump versus Biden debate. Why media will never ask these questions. So let's hear it.
All right.
Is he going to focus largely on the graft and corruption of the Trump administration, their open disregard for the law, the fact that the Trump administration has repeatedly promoted people in power who have conflicts of interest, such as the new USPS Postmaster General having tens of millions of dollars invested in direct competitors to the USPS, or, I mean, honestly, pretty much every political appointee from the Trump administration works in industries that they want to destroy. EPA, education, whatever the case may be. What's he going to do, folks? Let's find out. I haven't watched the thing.
Hey, Sauger, what's on your radar?
Well, it's really great to be back here at the desk after nearly a week off. I spent it traveling between beautiful national parks in the American West. And during the
Sorry, we were interrupting your regularly scheduled program to deliver you this food update from Paul Joseph Watson, reminding us once more that the greatest argument against the Nazi belief in the supremacy of Europeans is the food British people eat. Just take it in. Does this look like the work of a superior culture to you?
last week, I actually drove through 8 different states, and I made it a point everywhere I stopped just to check in with business owners, service workers, other travelers, anyone else I encountered as to how exactly they were doing. The answer was really universal. A feeling of chaos is gripping this country. It's absent a clear path forward economically and medically that's set forth by Washington. People are anxiously just watching the news, trying to figure out how the latest pronouncement may or may not affect a program that they are literally relying on right now to.
Isn't it cool that like 30% of the renting population of America is facing eviction? And that Congress concluded without having another session reopening until September, without passing any relief whatsoever to people in need of relief. That was pretty cool. How literally all people were talking about was potentially passing relief for people who are about to be evicted, and then they just like didn't do it.
Stay afloat. And it was during that week that I actually got the news that the Trump campaign, unbeknownst to me, had put me on a list of potential moderators for an extra proposed debate between Vice President Joe Biden and President Donald Trump. Now, look, I'm under no illusions that the Biden campaign will ever let the vice president get near me for a difficult and unvetted question. But let's say that they did. What would I focus on?
That's an interesting way of framing it. You're a hyper-partisan conservative conspiracy theorist who aligns more with Tucker Carlson, who is somehow further to the right of Trump. but the Biden administration wouldn't want you as a moderator because of your epic truth-seeking potential. Yes, the deep dives and questions to power you frequently invoke in your show, such as saying you disagree with Trump on a thing, but then encouraging people to vote for Trump on anything anyway, and telling you that actually BLM is pro-establishment.
I thought about it a lot while I was off, and I was struck by something else about that list. Now, as far as I can tell, I'm actually the only person under 30 who is on it, and predominantly known amongst people like you.
Wait, what? No way! He's 2 years older than me? Damn, I thought I was doing good for my age. But I haven't been selected to moderate the presidential debate. I guess I have 2 more years. Jesus Christ. Okay, well.
Or within a similar age range. We are the people who are getting the most screwed by what is going on right now here in Washington. We're the first generation of Americans who know with relative certainty that if things continue right now, as they will, we will not be better off than our parents. And worse,
Isn't this generation already materially better off? Also, first of all, fuck you, dude. You're rich, okay? What is this like? Oh yeah, dude. Us struggling young people are the ones suffering the most. Come on, dude. I don't pull that grift, and I definitely don't have as much money as you. Okay? So are you? No, I don't pull that shit. You can go through my channel. I never do this. Like, yeah, we need bailing out. We're not paying our rent. I'm doing fine. So are you, Sauger. Quit this fake populism bullshit. You're literally a besuited media elite, okay?
We, in the aggregate, are deciding not to get married or have children or accumulate any of the benefits that are our American right. So to put the Biden or Trump campaign's mind at ease, it's that...
Wait, what was that?
...that are American are deciding not to get married or have children or accumulate any of the benefits that are our American right.
What are the benefits of what benefits does he believe Americans are entitled to? Is he... Wait, that's just such an interesting departure from the traditional conservative rhetoric, which is like, you earn what you get. What does he think our American right is? To get married? But like, is that it? Like healthcare? I don't know. That's just a weird... I wonder if I could press him on that if I talk to him someday.
So to put the Biden or Trump campaign's mind at ease, it's that framework that I would use to moderate an extra presidential debate. A debate specifically focused on the rot at the heart of the American economy and our foreign adventures abroad, which have bled this country dry and led to where we are today. The debate, as I envision it, would have 3 sections. First and foremost, would focus on the crisis that we have at hand, both medically and economically. Now, all the questions in this section to President Trump and Vice President Biden would focus specifically on the plans both candidates have to extricate America from the hellscape that we find ourselves in today.
So Trump has literally no national plan whatsoever for COVID-19 and never has. If he was asked this question, he'd be like, we got the tests. We test so much. We test too much, maybe, even. We got the test. Some states did better. Whereas Biden has advocated, at least for some kind of national response. So I don't even know how Trump would answer that question.
Vaccine delivery, school reopenings, guidance to governors, states, the plans for a resurgence of the virus, and all that more. That's just one facet of the crisis which gets a lot of attention. But what doesn't get as much is the complete mess that we see in our economic system today. What specific programs in the immediate term would both candidates support to stop the housing and economic crisis that we have today, which is just as bad as the Great Depression? What forward-looking economic programs will both these candidates support to pull ourselves, really, out of this mess once the virus itself is contained? Whoever becomes president will spend virtually his entire time in office trying to rebuild the American economy. Now, both candidates owe Americans, and specifically younger Americans, with an answer to the question, how will you restore a society that ensures that its youngest citizens, they will be better off than their parents? Now, that first section, it's one you're going to see in any presidential.
I mean, that's like a super easy question to answer, though. You eliminate college tuition, at least up to a point. You eliminate college debt. You get people free healthcare. Like that's like a really, really like super duper easy one. Raise up minimum wage, $15 per hour minimum wage. So you're not working slave wages. Again, keep in mind that if the minimum wage back in the 1960s had kept up with our increasing productivity, it would be $22 an hour today. The fact that small businesses couldn't afford to employ workers at $22 an hour today is a product of the fact that giant corporations have effectively strangleholded the viability of small businesses by engaging in the production of scale.
Debate. But it's the next two that I think are the most important, and these are the ones you never see them have to answer. That is a tenacious grilling of both candidates. How exactly do we find ourselves living with historically corrupt governing institutions and an economic system that even before this crisis was destroying any chance of prosperity that working Americans ever had?
So again, the funny thing to me is that this is supposed to be like an equal gotcha to both people. But if you really think about it, how would Biden answer this? Like, what is Biden responsible for? Well, Biden was vice president back when Obama bailed out Wall Street. A lot of people don't know this, but the bailouts to Wall Street weren't a gift; they were a loan. Wall Street actually paid all that back with interest. So that's it. Obama was like light on Wall Street, and Obama was pretty permissive of existing corruption in the government. Whereas Trump has just gutted our entire appointed official infrastructure and put businessmen who profit from destroying government programs all over the place. It's left half of the positions unfilled. There are still hundreds of government appointee positions that are unfilled. It's interesting to me because Sauger always criticizes Biden more than Trump during his show, but right now he's asking questions that that are way easier answers for Biden than they are for Trump, you know? Biden destroyed nations like Honduras? Yeah, it was pretty cringe, but that's not this question. He might get to that one later, though, the foreign policy one.
President Trump, I'd press him. Why did he run a campaign in 2016 that served as the ultimate indictment of the GOP establishment, only to come into office and embrace many of them into his governing coalition, and worse, largely allow them to set his governing agenda in Congress for the majority of his time in office? Does he still have the systemic critiques of the American economy and the international system that he shared on the campaign trail in 2016?
What systemic critiques did Trump ever make of the economy? What does he know what systemic mean? Does he think systemic critique of the economy means we're losing on trade? We're losing on trade. We're getting more than we're putting out. That's it. I think that's actually it. China. Yeah, I think it was pretty much just saying China, the best, too much regulation. Yeah, but these aren't really criticisms. These are just vague gestures at economic populism. It's not quite the same. There's still a lot of outstanding money in the bailout, though. Oh, how much of it is left? Yeah, I shouldn't have said they paid it all back. They paid a fair amount of it back. How much are we at now? So initially, the total disbursement was $634 billion. The total return was $390 billion. And the total revenues from dividends, interest, and other fees was $353 billion, with a total net to date of $110 billion. Yeah, okay, so the government has made money off this, but yeah, it's an ongoing process.
2016? If so, will he commit to trying to fulfill those higher ideals in a second term in office?
What ideas?
And why should Americans believe him a second time around after mixed results in the first term?
What mixed results?
President Biden, I'd press him on his role as an architect of the current system today. Do you regret your vote for NAFTA, PNTR with China? Do you regret championing a rising China for decades and allowing your working class constituents' jobs to be stolen?
What is that? I hate. This is what he's so vague. This is what I mean. If he asked these questions in a debate, I really hope Biden would just say he's an idiot. Like, these are idiot questions, okay? First of all, what do you mean allowed these things to outsource? Like, the government stole. These are such weighted words. I love how he's like, even though like Trump has led an unprecedented campaign of like dishonesty and graft, he was like, Trump will you really do these things again? Why should we believe you? And Biden, how could you allow these jobs to be stolen? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? First of all, corporations do have a right to shift their jobs around if they want to. If you want to propose legislation to stop that, I mean, fucking Trump didn't. So it's not like that's a pretty even question. I don't know why you'd exclusively levy that against Biden. Additionally, what has this allowed China to grow? Trump has massively increase the relative trade power of China. The tariffs we did hurt us far more than China. China is just in a better economic position than we are. Outsourcing hasn't decreased, it's increased with time. Like, this is so like he's like trying to come off as this like nonpartisan, political actor here, but it's so obvious that. And what is this? Will you take responsibility for your participation in the perpetuation of the system that exists today? What the fuck do you mean? That is so fucking vague. That is not an appropriate question to ask a presidential debate candidate. 93,000 jobs were outsourced in Trump's first year compared to 88,000 in Obama's last year. Yeah, like, it just hasn't gone down. It's like people who talk about Obama like he was the drone hawk. Like, yeah, he was. And then Trump did more, So, like, yeah. But all Sauger had to say was like, you had such, Mr. Trump, you had such good criticisms of the economy. You haven't done a good enough job to hold up to those. Please tell us you'll do a better job for your second term. And for Biden, he's like, the system stands on the brink of collapse thanks to the permissiveness of you and your administration. How do you plead?
Do you regret your time when you were known as a senator from MBNA, then a major credit card company?
What?
Do you pledge that the overwhelming Wall Street support that you find yourself with at this time will not be rewarded when you come into office?
As opposed to Trump? Wait, as opposed to Trump, known antagonist of the... Again, I'm not here saying either of these candidates are good. I don't know what he was going on about with the senator MBNA thing. I'm not saying either of these candidates are good. I don't like either of these people. But it's so fucking obvious how biased he is. He tries to play this like, they won't let me near the debate stage because of these hard-hitting media questions. Dude, the reason why the media wouldn't ask questions like this is because they're stupid questions. That's why. They're dumb questions.
Do you regret your role in an administration which was lifted up on the hopes of millions in 2008, only to be sold out once again? What would you do differently? Finally, and probably
just like 2 points for Trump, 20 points for Biden.
Most importantly, is a realm of foreign policy. Our wars abroad have bled this nation dry. President Trump was elected to office with a pledge to bring Americans home from Afghanistan and significantly change the U.S. posture abroad. Troops remain in Afghanistan today. Troops remain in Syria. Troops remain in Europe. Our military posture towards China, which Trump repeatedly and correctly highlighted as a threat, remains basically the same as it did in 2016. How did that happen? What assurances can Americans have and actually believe that he is going to give that American troops will finally come home from Afghanistan in the near future?
Remember how in the interview that Trump did with that guy, the last one that we watched, Trump was too scared to even commit to the number of troops left in Afghanistan at the end of his term? Remember? He was like, I don't want to say a number, because if I do one day late, like you're not going to, remember? Because he's done nothing on that front. How much did it go down? It went from like 12,000 to 8,000 or something like that? Yeah, while he promoted like a massive increase to the military budget? Yeah, like...
Will the neocons in your administration be booted out? And fundamentally, why should Americans trust you? To Vice President Biden, many of the same questions remain. He was Senate Foreign Relations Committee chairman during the lead up to the war in Iraq. He enthusiastically supported the war and didn't turn against it until nearly a year into the conflict. His record on the matter remains murky. On Afghanistan, he was once known as someone who wanted to bring American troops home, but recently has appeared to become both a neocon hawk who wants endless wars in that region, but also adopted the new democratic obsession with a supposedly threatening Russia.
Whoa, that's pretty fucking weighted. So first of all, the way you framed that question made it sound like the two things are antagonistic. This is just a semantic difference. But the way you phrased that sentence made it sound as though the not liking Russia and being a war hawk things are like separate or in some way, mutually exclusive when they link together pretty well. I would like any evidence from you that he's taken a far right war hawk position. Because that doesn't I don't know. Like Biden and Trump have both pledged to get people out of the Middle East. I don't believe either of them, frankly. And what is this Russia thing? This is the same lie that people did with Hillary Clinton back in the 2016 election. They said that Hillary Clinton wanted to go to war with Russia because in one interview, an interviewer asked Hillary Clinton what measures she would take to prevent Russia from interfering with like our foreign affairs, and she said that she would take any measures necessary, which is like, I guess, the correct answer, because like if Russia starts bombing our troops, or say, for example, putting out bounties to the Taliban to kill our troops, then it seems like some kind of reprisal would be justified. But I mean, credit where credit's due. There's probably no one in America less likely to stand up to Russia than Trump. So that, I guess, if you think that's a good thing, then that's a point in his favor. Russia, really though, Russia is like a threat to democracy. Russia is a threat to America. Russia is a threat to democracy. Putin is a fascist. Who, I mean, I just got a donation telling me this like 20 minutes ago, poisoned his like election opposition candidate. He funds far-right movements all over the world. He's the friend of dictators, near and far. Like, he's not a good guy. He's not a good guy. And a lot of people, and this is something they've weaponized, and I wish lefties would stop enabling this. Yes, the Democrats are cringe about Russia. Yes, the DNC blamed Russia for losing the election. Yes, Hillary was a terrible candidate. Yes, Hillary is cringe, blah, 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 blah. We get it. None of that changes the fact that Russia is bad. Nothing. But I still don't think Biden has said he wants to go to war with Russia. I mean, I know for a fact that he hasn't.
Continue a Cold War posture towards Russia? Will he bring into office many of the same people who worked in Obama's administration, which perpetuated America's continued foreign entanglements?
Trump literally had brought on John Bolton, by the way.
Does he still believe a rising China is good for the United States?
What does that mean, rising China? Biden has literally criticized Trump for being too easy on China. And frankly, I would agree. Wait, this is insane. How can Sauger over here say that antagonism towards Russia is perpetuating a new Cold War, but then go on to say that we need more antagonism with China? Wait, do you recognize that you realize which side of the Cold War that China was on, right? Before Nixon? This is the pot calling the kettle black. The Republicans want to associate with Russia, not associate with China, except they actually do want to associate with both. And the Democrats don't want to associate with either. Like, yeah, it's completely arbitrary.
What assurances can he give the youth of America who must fight the foolish wars of the elite that they won't be required to continue doing so? One of the core themes of our show is that the establishments of both parties are out to screw you and have been, by and large, successful. Being away from Washington made me realize that while everything that happens here may seem petty and ridiculous, it has such outsized and dramatic implications for the everyday lives of American working men and women who wait anxiously for their leaders to actually do something for them and do as they say. It would be an honor to moderate a presidential debate and to try and press both these candidates on the issues foremost in my mind and the minds of so many millions of others. Can I grow up to be better off than my parents? If not, what are you going to do about it?
I mean, you're like a famous media figure, so you're probably doing better than your parents? I don't know. You look like the kind of person who might have been born, in a privileged position, but that's not necessarily the case, Again, just nothing makes me cringe harder than people in positions like him try to do the we shit. It's class collaborationism, which is an essential component of fascism. People in positions of power saying that they're with you, We're suffering together. Usually fascists will do it on a race basis, but class collaborationism is still very, very important. We have a shared national identity.
And that's something that I really thought a lot about, which is that what is missing from our debates? And I was thinking back to the Trump-Hillary ones, and I remember watching the dials. You know, they have those live dials of like when things are supportive. And I remember Trump would weave trade into an answer, and the dials would shoot 65, 70. And nobody in the press understood what the hell was going on. TPP, on NAFTA, on so much more. And that's how I really knew something was happening.
Yeah.
And so that he really had a chance, and that this
The thing that was happening is that elites like you have been pushing the lie to working class Americans that the reason they are growing poorer is because of transnational trade agreements and not for the actual reason, which is that the switch from a production to a service economy has given the elites an excuse to shank the wages of the average American worker. That's it. We are not made poorer as a country for transnational trade agreements. We are made wealthier as a country. The issue is where that wealth goes. We are not going to bring back the giant manufacturing base we had in this country back 70 years ago. It's not going to happen. We're not doing it. You think we're going to bring back an America where everyone works in a fucking factory? We have the internet now. Why the fuck would we ever have human bodies occupying factory spots when we could have engineers supervising 100 robots doing the work 10 times as quickly? This hatred of NAFTA and the TPP, while there are legitimate criticisms to levy here, isn't about working class populism. It's about people like Sauger giving you a red herring, directing your antagonism against trade and against internationalism, when it should be against the domestic actions of domestic politicians and domestic capitalist elites. But Sauger doesn't have an issue with domestic capitalist elites or domestic politicians. Not really, because he has admitted that he does not have a problem with elites. He has a problem with the kinds of elites we have right now. Well, the issue is, in order for you to be elite, you must necessarily be in a position of privilege over others. And in this case, that privilege over others is dictated by your vastly superior wealth and economic power. It could be a JQ dog whistle, but I'm going to be charitable and assume that he just wants... I don't even know. What is a better elite?
Systemic critique was like really landing with Americans. I still don't think the media has internalized that.
They don't. They only understand trade now through the lens of like Trump did something different on trade vis-a-vis China, ergo it must be bad, right? They just have gone sort of, fully in the opposite direction of whatever Trump ultimately does. I think it's really interesting your point about we have to have a conversation about how we got here.
Yeah.
Because that's a conversation that they all want to avoid. I mean, we all know the neoliberal Democrats, they do not want to have that conversation whatsoever. They don't want to reckon with the fact that 8 years of Obama, which was supposed to, transform the country in this progressive direction, is followed immediately by 4 years at least of Trump. So, and not to mention, put Trump aside, not to mention the loss of state legislatures, of governors' mansions, like a destruction.
That's nice. Thank you, left-leaning crystal ball, who came in and essentially blamed Trump derangement syndrome and then complained about the Democrats. Let's put Trump aside. Yeah, this really looks bad for the Democrats, doesn't it?
Of the Democratic Party basically occurred under Obama. And you can look back to the years of Clinton. You can look back to the way that Democrats responded to the Reagan era, all of that. And no one ever, ever, ever has to answer for all of that. They want to pretend that this all just came out of nowhere and they had nothing to do with it.
See, her only purpose here, again, this is just a propaganda mill designed to funnel disaffected Bernie or Busters over to the far right. That's what this does. And that's what she does. I don't buy this myth that she's trying her best to push back on Sauger's bullshit. Look at it. Like, Sauger, any reasonably intelligent political actor should know that Sauger's list of, what questions I would ask them were horrendously biased and deliberately vague, such as to manufacture a political agenda. And then Crystal comes in here, and Crystal goes for the alley-oop. Crystal goes for the 1-2. Now Crystal's here, the left-leaning person, to go oh yeah, the Democrats really do have no fucking idea what's going on right now, as opposed to the Republicans, which have a phenomenal history of appealing to the interests of working class Americans, yes. But we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about both. because that would get in the way of us sort of, subtly implying or sometimes outright stating that the Democrats are just flat worse than the Republicans.
And then on Trump's side, right?
Oh, well.
The same critique that he leveled has been absent from the way that he has governed.
And nobody presses him on that, right?
Ever.
Whenever they press
Oh my God, that was so much fucking lighter.
Trump, it's like, why are you so bad and orange? And why do you speak differently than past president? I'm like,
Nice. Even when they're pointing out that Trump fucked up, they still have to throw in a dig about how the left doesn't know how to criticize them. They have to throw in the orange man bad joke. That's great.
Let's talk about your cognitive testing.
I could care less. I couldn't care less.
You couldn't care about the cognitive testing of Trump? See, look at even now, like they can't even criticize Trump. They have to criticize Trump through the framework of saying that their criticism of him would be so much more substantive than the criticism of the crazy neolibs, but they won't actually say the criticism. They'll just talk about how bad neolibs are.
How you conduct yourself, and no, I guess I care a little bit, but the norms and all that matter far less to me than like we restore the economic system.
Right. Well, that's like
that actually has prosperity in this.
Biden tweeted out this thing of like, you're never going to have to worry about my tweets when I'm president.
I don't care.
And put it on a T-shirt, and I was like, oh my God. But that is the heart of basically the campaign that they are running, and that is the heart of the Democratic critique against Trump.
Don't pretend Biden is more competent. He's definitely more senile than Trump is. I don't believe that at all. Have you actually watched like Trump talk to anyone? It's actually like leading around a child. Biden misspeaks all the time, but when he's not misspeaking, he actually follows in the conversation. Trump doesn't follow conversations anymore.
Trump. And look, I don't like his personal style either, but it is far from my deepest concern as people face eviction, foreclosure, hunger, like food insecurity. I mean, those are the issues. And
she literally cannot criticize Republicans. Just like a 2-minute tirade on Democrats. And then like, oh yeah, people say Trump's bad, but when they say Trump's bad, they're just like the orange man bad. They're so dumb. Liberals are so dumb. I don't care. When Biden criticizes Trump, it's so dumb. So anyway, like there are some criticisms. I don't really know, but it's so dumb how they do it. Anyway, this is what I care about. And then she lists a bunch of things that Trump has absolutely failed on, but she won't say that.
And you cannot, so we need to know the current plans, but also in order to figure out how you're going to govern into the future, we need to know what your analysis is of how we got here. Because that tells us so much about how you're going to move forward. And then the other piece that you rightly point to here is the personnel piece, right? Yeah. Biden made a couple of identity-based pledges for his administration, but we haven't heard any pledges, even though progressive groups tried to push him on this, about like, you're going to have Wall Street executives, you're going to have fossil fuel executives.
What about Trump? Trump also hasn't done this. Why, in a segment where you're comparing two parties, are you only talking about one of them not doing this when the other one didn't do this also? Not only did Trump not make any of these pledges, Trump actually brought on all the worst neocons back to his administration. Trump has been surrounded with people who have been arrested for one thing or another. But we're not going to talk about that, I guess. Let's not get in the way of the circle jerk, boys.
How is this money that's flooding into your campaign? How is that going to affect how you govern and the people that you put into key positions? And Trump has a lot to answer for.
He has a lot of
hold on. Okay, here we go. Let's capitulate.
People that he's brought into his administration. The really sad thing is that a number of these people, Steve Mnuchin and many more, could easily be in either one of their administrations.
Mnuchin literally was a Democrat.
Yeah.
Nice! We finally criticized Trump, and the first sentence after we mention criticizing Trump, the criticism is that the person could have been in either administration. They can't do it. It's in the contract. They literally can't criticize Trump. This feels like a fucking parody. I'm losing my mind. I don't know if it's actually in the contract, but anytime they criticize Trump, anytime, it has to be a roundabout criticism of the Democrats. Whereas when you're criticizing Democrats, it can be extensive and thorough and incredibly one-sided. But no. But Sauger is the right one and Crystal is the left one. That's right. Like, well, that's fuck. I should have gone so much harder on Ben Burgess when I talk with him. When Ben Burgess tried to like sell my chat on the idea that Crystal Ball tried to legitimately push back against Sauger, that's not fucking true, dude. Every segment I see of these people, Crystal Ball is very clearly, deliberately trying to frame all of her criticisms in a way that do not pull people to the left and actively push people towards the right.
Is the point. And I also think for Biden, one of the things that really scares me is he has...
We're back to Biden, by the way. We did one Trump criticism, and it was actually like, well, actually, the Dems and the Republicans could have done that.
It's a long track record over the course of a very lengthy career, many, many decades in this town, of being very susceptible to this deficit hawk language. Like, he wants to, his natural inclination is to find the center, whatever that is.
Yes.
He's going to find it. He doesn't have any real, he's got like some slogans and some sort of like branding exercises as his principles. So what could that mean in a Biden administration if you have Republicans, you know they're going to go full deficit hog, the debt, and they'll be all over that.
Coming back.
Just like the Tea Party era, it's going to be that all over again. And in that era, he and Obama both really bent to that pressure. So, like, are you going to do that again when the center shifts to the right?
How can you levy the criticism that Democrats are bad because they're susceptible to being pushed to the right from the right on being deficit hawks? You're criticizing the Democrats for bending to the political efforts of the Republicans on them being deficit hawks. This is insane. But like, you could say the Republicans are massive deficit hawks, and unfortunately, Biden might be susceptible to their arguments as well. But that argument would have to open with a criticism of the Republicans, which she can't do. It's not in her contract. She's not allowed to. Yeah, Hill.tv are Trump donors. Yes, that's completely true. The producer of this show, Rising, is a Trump supporter. Yep, totally fine. Totally okay.
In a backlash against your election, as Republicans all get on the same page with that, where are you going to find yourself ideologically? Those are the things that I think a lot about and that I have zero confidence will actually get asked.
Of course, it won't ever get asked. And I have no illusions that it'll actually happen. But I was just thinking about what an opportunity it would be to really press them both. And that's one thing I've always driven me crazy about Trump and the press is the press never...
Are we going to get a criticism of Trump?
Holds him to account to the voters who actually put him into office. They hold him to account for the norms that they consider sacred. They never ask him, right, about in a way that'd be like, why?
Nope, not a criticism of Trump, just a criticism of the media for not calling Trump out. That's just once more, which sounded like this is what drives me crazy about Trump. The media doesn't hold Trump to account enough. Well, isn't that a criticism of Trump for being inconsistent and dishonest with his positions? Well, no, it's the media. God.
Why is the manufacturing index down? Why aren't you focusing on this? Why are you not focusing, on unemployment? Or
why aren't you? Why? Yeah, don't ask the media why they're not asking that. Ask him that.
So many of these other economic structures. Why are you listening to Larry Kudlow and Stephen Moore? And
ask him.
I've never heard that once because they all like Larry Kudlow. They've all known him for 30 years.
Right.
You're the media. You ask him. Why are you asking the media why the media is not asking him this question? You're the media. Ask him. Do a segment. Hey, Trump, here's all the shit the media won't ask you. Why do you fucking suck on this? Why do you fucking suck on this? Why do you fucking suck on this? But you don't do it. Because you're not doing it, because you don't actually give a fuck about criticizing him. Even when you criticize him, you're criticizing the media. Even when you criticize him, you're criticizing the Democratic Party. You can't just criticize him. And again, I know you're a far-right partisan hack who doesn't actually give a shit about the populism that you make money off pretending to support. I recognize that. My main issue here is with this show and with Crystal Ball, who are completely complicit in the promotion of these ideas. Completely. Crystal Ball is not... Crystal Ball! How old is Crystal Ball? I've been doing political commentary for about a year and a half. Crystal Ball should be able to look at what Sauger is doing right now and think, this does not seem like fair coverage and commentary on this issue. But she doesn't. She joins in. And she plays to the myth with everything that she says, that the rising is meant to be speaking truth to power instead of what it actually is, which is an endorsement of the Republican Party, and farther right than the Republican Party.
That's the real issue that I've always found. And so I thought, man, if you could press them both from that particular direction, I think it would do a lot of service to younger Americans. But I'm not stupid. I don't think it's going to happen.
Maybe someone who does get to moderate will listen to your radar.
All right.
A Massachusetts congressional candidate is facing some tough questions. Is that...
Well, we're all the lesser for not having the opportunity to watch you grill Trump and Biden with your completely nonpartisan, completely unbiased, completely anti-establishment perspective on issues. Holy fuck. I can't. It's actually insane to me how biased this show is and how people just let it happen. So wait. Do you think the comments? So people tell me that The Rising is like a neutral show or left-leaning show. So do you think the comments are going to be criticizing Trump or Biden? Can you imagine? Sauger, Vice President Biden, do you regret voting for NAFTA? Come on, man. Okay, so that's a 1 for the right. A bunch of people are praising Sauger here, which as far as I'm concerned is just them supporting the right. But I'll be clear here. I can't imagine Biden challenging Sauger to a push-up contest. Again, that's a dig at Biden. All these are just praise of Sauger. That's it. Which I all consider right-leaning, because all Sauger really did is signal loyalty to the right. These people are so unoriginal. They're all just saying, and that's why you won't be chosen. I hate these people. All right, that's enough. Yeah, it's just super biased. Just really fucking cringe. I just can't believe people prop this up as like a valid or reasonable. I should do Rising more often. I don't even consider this to be anti-left. Crystal Ball is not in any measurable sense on my political side on this particular issue. It's not really even attacking left. It's just it's just sort of, yeah, I don't know. Fuck me, dude.